I'm Federica Carugati from Stanford University. This is the second of 3 mini lectures on the political economy of ancient Greece. In a previous video, I argued that ancient Greece is a valuable comparative case study for students of political economy and institutional development. The Greeks developed robust citizen-centered governments and achieved remarkable levels of economic and social development. The small size and relative homogeneity of the Greek population should not lead us astray. The city-states were not so small that they could easily overcome collective action dilemmas. And the fact that the population was homogeneous in some respects, particularly language and religion, does not mean that sources of conflict were absent. In fact, according to my colleague Scott Arsenis's recently completed dissertation, stasis, or civil war, was a frequent phenomenon in Greece. If ancient Greece is a valuable comparative case study for political economists and students of institutional development, then we should be able to use this relatively vast and still underexploited body of evidence to test and develop social scientific theories. In this video, I discuss some of the most exciting recent contributions to this fast-growing literature. These range from studies of democratization, the institutional sources of economic growth, and the development of constitutional and legal structures. My colleagues and co-authors Robert Fleck and Andy Hansen at Clemson University wrote extensively about the origins of democracy. Their analysis of democratization in Greece supports the resource curse literature by suggesting that countries with wealth based on resources requiring little investment have weaker incentives to establish democracy. More recently, Daron Acemoglu and James Robinson have returned to the question of how inclusive political institutions emerge. Drawing on evidence from ancient Athens and early modern England, they suggest that inclusive institutions develop when state capacity deepens as power is spread more broadly in society. These findings contradict influential modernization and state-building theories of political and economic development. In the 2008 book, Democracy and Knowledge, Josiah Ober tackled the question of the causal relationship between democracy and prosperity. Drawing from the Athenian evidence, Ober concluded that democracy, and particularly the ability of Athens' democratic institutions to effectively aggregate, align, and codify knowledge, was a major driver of Athens' prosperity. Another exciting branch of the literature focuses on constitutional and legal structures. Early Greek law is remarkable for its emphasis on controlling elite power. One of the earliest written laws from the city of Treros on the island of Crete, dated to the middle of the 7th century BCE, limits any individual's ability to hold the office called the kosmos, the chief magistrate, to only once in 10 years. My colleague Sarah Fursteig from the University of Michigan has written on the Athenian practice of ostracism, whereby the Athenians held an assembly each year to establish whether to vote to ostracize someone. If a majority voted yes, then another assembly would be held to decide whom to ostracize. Assemblymen would scratch the name of the person to be ostracized on pieces of pottery called ostraca, and the men receiving the most votes, that is, with a simple plurality vote, would be exiled from the city for 10 years. My own work, in part carried out with my co-authors Gillian Hadfield at the University of Southern California, Randy Calvert at Washington University in St. Louis, and Barry Weinges at Stanford University, has focused extensively on Athens' constitutional and legal structures. Using a set of different methodologies ranging from traditional historical exegesis to modeling, I sought to address questions about the emergence and sustainability of legal order in the absence of strongly centralized state institutions. My recently completed book manuscript, preliminarily titled How to Build a Constitution, Constitution-Making, Democracy and Growth in Classical Athens, uses the case of ancient Athens to identify the minima of successful constitution building. The modeling work focuses instead on the question of how the Athenian courts applied and enforced the law in the absence of the institutions that many social scientists identify as critical to these tasks, including a police force and expert judges and lawyers. Such a short overview cannot do justice to the many exciting developments that are taking place in this emerging interdisciplinary field. But for anyone interested in reading more, I would highly recommend the forthcoming volume from Edinburgh University Press titled Ancient Greek History and Contemporary Social Science. The book emerged from the proceedings of a conference held at the University of Edinburgh in the fall of 2015, which brought together ancient historians and social scientists to discuss the future of the field and share their innovative work.